No big capitals, no banks, just a success from 2 or 3 months on. Yeah, we were really excited to take it from there.
Came across this saying that I love a lot. It's called prevention is key, but so is cure. So how do you balance between B2B and B2C customer acquisition and retention?
So there's a lot of competition that sell for, let's say, for margins that we couldn't hire 3 persons for. Started evolving our web shops, created more product groups.
But with your own website and your own platform, you also attract bigger customers, more businesses. Do you see any revenue milestones? This is where things started shifting.
How important? Performance is revenue. This is a continuous struggle because those prices go up and down, where I think that business to consumer is definitely about clarity, speed. It's obviously a scary period for business owners with AI coming to town, so to say. Frictionless purchasing will occur, what I expect. And we already see this happening in America. There's a lot of cliches there, but to actually believe in the customer and not in the sale, I think that makes a difference.
For the second episode of Customer Stories by Cloudways, I'm having a conversation with Joost Rust, founder of CoolSafety. CoolSafety is an e-commerce company that sells personal protective equipment, PPE, to business customers and individual consumers. Today, CoolSafety is the largest PPE and first aid web shop in the Netherlands, known for its exceptionally high customer satisfaction, reliable deliveries, and high-quality products. In this conversation, Joost and I talk about what it really takes to build a successful e-commerce business in 2026. Let's get started.
Welcome to Customer Stories by Cloudways, Joost. I'm really excited to have you here.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Excited to be here too.
The pleasure is mine. I would love to start with you telling us how you started CoolSafety in 2007. What made you start this business? Did you raise capital? Did you bootstrap? Walk me through the journey.
All right. Well, it's always nice to talk about my own company, and looking back, it's always nice to jump back about 20 years. We saw a gap in the market. It was a friend of mine and myself. At that time, e-commerce wasn't at the level that it is currently. It was also a little bit of luck that we encountered a supplier of hearing protection and said, well, why don't you just try out selling it online? You're probably the only one that is selling it at the moment, which was the case. And it was hearing protection, which is safety, obviously. We just saw the gap in the market, started just from scratch, no big capital investments. We bootstrapped the business from day one, and that made us help in forcing us the discipline and the customer centricity. We were profitable from pretty much the second or the third month already, so it was quite successful, and we really got a taste of it from the beginning. We were so excited, no big capitals, no banks, and just a success from 2 or 3 months on. So we were really excited to take it from there, and ever since then we started evolving our web shops, created more product groups, adopted more product groups, and I'm fairly happy to say that we are quite authority on in the Netherlands at the moment for safety products. So excited to be here. It was a long journey, but I think it was a good one.
Yes, and I want to build on what you said, that you were actually one of the first ones, if not the only one, doing it at the time. And most people, especially when they are new to entrepreneurship, want to move towards the hottest and the trendiest spaces. For example, everyone's now currently building in AI and SaaS, and they have their reasons. But what made you build in an operational essential category, which wasn't as glamorized?
Well, still, I think it's safety, and surely it isn't trendy, but it matters every single day. It was a little bit of luck, as I said, but we, pretty soon we discovered that there was a direct supply. It didn't really matter what products they were, but we were really doing something that actually matters. So you might look at it as boring, but it's also quite essential. It's not the primary product for our customers. So the customers that we serve, they build houses, or they are in chemical factories and so on. So personal protection is always something that they have to get, which makes it possible for us to jump right into it and make sure that they have enough products. They don't have to worry about their safety. We help them with certain technologies. We help them with services, and it protects lives. So I don't really see it as a boring category. It creates loyalty, trust, responsibility. So yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I don't really see it as I really see it as added value.
Yeah, that's true. And I really also like the name. It's so simple, and also it makes safety look cool. Was that the intent behind the name?
Well, I think that the cool bit of the name really needs a little bit more explanation, because what we see is that people tend not to enjoy wearing additional protection like gloves or glasses or helmets. And if we don't focus additionally on safety, but also on comfort and on style, then perhaps we can make it slightly more cooler to wear it, which makes customers, want it to wear and use a little bit more than they were historically. So we try to adopt more brands, innovations that are just looking stylish or give some additional features, and that's where the cool part comes from.
Oh wow, that's interesting. I now want to talk about how you look at marketplaces like Amazon as a part of an e-commerce business strategy. How should founders think of the trade-off between using a marketplace's reach and its scale and owning their own customer relationships?
All right. Well, it's a tough question, and I'm a little bit split in this. And I think that marketplaces like Amazon or Bol in the Netherlands, which is a pretty major one in the Netherlands, are quite powerful and powerful distribution channels, but they're hardly ever brands. So they offer scale and reach, but the actual attention and the customers, if you don't own your customers, then you're not actually building the brand. And I think for a long-term strategy, it might yield some revenue or maybe a lot of revenue, but I don't know if it really builds your brand. I know in the Netherlands it doesn't, so it's maybe a good way to start, but not for a long enduring relationship. That's my personal opinion on that. And our strategy is really clear on this one. I mean, the marketplaces can support a little bit of visibility, but the core of our business is direct customer relationships. And the main difference there is, for example, that the marketplaces, and we've been focusing on marketplaces for a while and trying it out. The majority of our sales is always one piece, one pair of shoes, one jacket, one helmet, one glass, and then that's it, and that's where it stops. So you never get the opportunity as a brand to actually help the customers with safety. You help them with products, but not safety. So that's where the big difference is.
Are you also saying that with marketplaces, it's only individual consumers that you're attracting, but with your own website and your own platform, you also attract bigger customers, more businesses?
We try. The thing is, obviously, we are an e-commerce company, so the individual customer and even the consumer can come and they can buy whatever they want. They can get the information they want. Obviously, services are less. I mean, we don't go to individual customers for, a big service proposition, but they need to feel at home at our web store. Obviously, there is more revenue to yield in the bigger customers, and there is more to gain with your services, with your authority. So yeah, I think we're aiming for the bigger customers, but also the consumers and the small business, they need to feel at home. And we make sure that our webshop suits that need.
Yes, 100%. You said that you bootstrapped the business, and I believe it's still bootstrapped, right? You didn't raise capital at any point?
That's right. I think in 2014, if I'm correct, we merged with a larger company, and they took what we called our services, additional services like our logistics and a little bit of HR and ICT and some financial control. We moved it to that partner. So it made us focus on marketing and sales and development in our own office. So a lot of our logistics is outsourced, if you want to call it that way. And that makes sure that we have a more focus on our customer centricity than it was before. The other thing is, before 2014, we did everything, and that's also a lot of fun. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, so you want to do, or you want to be involved in everything. But at some point, the growth is so big that it's not manageable, and you have to go outsourcing. But indeed, no external capital, and I think that gives a lot of ease of mind, so to say.
So the growth, it came to such a scale that you had to outsource logistics services in 2014 by merging with another company. So that was a huge milestone. But looking back, do you see any revenue milestones that you look back and say, yeah, this is where things started shifting? Actually,
looking back, I think that the COVID period was a milestone, and it wasn't a milestone that we aimed for. Obviously, I mean, it was a huge mess in the whole of the world. But obviously there was a huge demand of personal protection, like gloves and respiratory protection, like coveralls, etc. So we gained a lot of new customers in that period, a lot of customers from healthcare, and I think that once the whole storm of COVID a little bit calmed down, we stayed at that level. We stayed at a level of revenue, so we had a huge jump. And unfortunately, on reasons if we knew it beforehand, then we would have chosen not to have the COVID period. But it did give us a little bit of a boost. It gave a lot of learnings, a lot of new customers, where some of them are still there, and we never went down from that point. So we made a huge uplift. So we're talking about 2020, 2021. And we stayed there and got growth from there on. So that helped us a little bit. And I think that's a milestone. I think that was a milestone, one that we didn't plan for, but that just happened.
Right. And you said that the growth didn't dip after COVID.
No, hardly.
So are these big healthcare providers that keep buying? Or is it that the demand in the healthcare industry for protective gear has increased, or is it that you have created these relationships with these big businesses that they continue to buy?
Exactly. I mean, it cooled down obviously from that period, and then it started growing again. And I think that what helped us, obviously, a lot of healthcare companies had their suppliers that couldn't deliver to the demand in that period, so they used us, so to say, as a plan B. But we're also a company that really wants to build a relationship with the customers, and we could at that time. We proved that we were a reliable supplier. Not everyone stayed, obviously. They had their purchase channels, procurement processes in place before they started as a new customer at CoolSafety. But I think we got a pretty good, returning customers because of the relationship that we tried to build with those customers. So it cooled down slightly, and then we started building from there again.
Well, and you also said that you cater to both consumers and businesses. And when I was going through your website, I came across this saying that I love a lot. It's called "Prevention is key, but so is cure," because you sell both preventive gear and first aid products to both B2C and B2B businesses. So I think that could get tricky. So how do you balance between B2B and B2C customer acquisition and retention? Are there any strategies that have worked well for each of these?
Well, sure, there is. I mean, it's definitely two different groups where I think that business to consumer is definitely about clarity, speed, price transparency, strong brand positioning. That's more for the business to consumer segment. For business to business, it's obviously building a long-term relationship, partnerships, tailored advice, and so on. And also, again, the returning customers, the retention is built through reliability and added services, and obviously make sure that your webshop is performing like a Ferrari. So there's two strategies really. As I said earlier, the consumers need to feel at home. So we have a very specific tone of voice on our web shop to make sure that everyone feels welcome. We have AI chatbots to help out our customers at any time of the day and the week. And the long-term investment in business to business customers, we just have a strong team with, let's say inside sales, inside account managing. I think that we're doing pretty well.
Most people would argue that operations are everything in an e-commerce business. So I want to ask, what operational challenges have had the biggest negative impact on your margins over the years? Is it returns? Is it supply relationships, logistics? What has been the biggest challenge that you're still fighting against? How do you protect your margins with these challenges?
Okay, well, I think that's two questions, and I think that the biggest one is how do you protect your margins, and what are the ways that let's say what are the actual challenges here. I have to think about it, but I would say that there is a lot of competition that solely focus on selling products, and they do this on marketplaces. They do this in their own web shops, and they do it against prices that are really not suitable for a company that want to deliver service and building long-term relationships. So that's where our margins come under. Let's say on the challenges. So there's a lot of competition that sell for, let's say, for margins that we couldn't hire 3 persons for, so to say. And this is a continuous struggle because those prices go up and down pretty much on a daily basis. And it's really a decision to join that war or you don't, and we don't. Because of obvious reasons, because we want to build a long-term relationship that costs money, so we have to keep our margins on par. How do we do that? Well, that is building your brand. If you have a brand, you are reliable, you have a long-term relationship, then customers will come back to a certain account. Obviously, not every customer will always come back. It's still e-commerce. So the loyalty of customers is still lower than in other segments of our branch, let's say in wholesale. But I still strongly believe in this building of this brand. And then you can ask a little bit more for your products because you deliver services, you deliver, added value to the customer.
Right. If you could attribute the success of CoolSafety to one thing, could you point to something?
I think it's trust in ourselves and building a relationship with your customers. So if we trust in our own capacity and we believe in the customer itself and not in that sale, but in the customer, and that's where the difference is from my perspective. I think that's where really the success is. And I also understand and I hear myself saying it. Obviously, every company want to say, we focus solely on the customer, and the customer is always right. And there's a lot of cliches there. But to actually believe in the customer and not in the sale, I think that makes a difference. And it's part of our DNA.
I just want to go a little bit deeper into the question. How exactly do you build relationships with your customer, with your individual consumers and your business customers? I believe that those will be two different things.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways. One is the personal attention that we give to our customers, which requires a good CRM, and it means good people that are good and broadly educated. And it's the added value that we deliver to those customers. So we, as I said earlier in this interview, there's a lot of things that we can take away as a burden for the customers, and we are. So that feels good. It's not delivering the products; it's also helping them to make sure that their projects are not running still because there are no products there, or we do a better forecasting, or we come and check their products for let's say for legal how would you say that in English? To abide to the laws, so to say. Stuff like that just helps. I mean, if they don't have to worry about it, then we do it for multiple customers, so we know how to do it. They are just one customer, don't need to invent the wheel all the time. So that's where we step in, and that's where you build a relationship.
Thank you so much for answering that. I think you're the best person to answer my next question, because you run an e-commerce business that runs entirely online. How important would you say performance, uptime, and scalability are for you?
How important? Well, performance is revenue, and you can quote me on that one. So if your website is slow, unstable, offline, you're literally turning off your sales engine. So that needs to be on par, that needs to be perfect. And obviously it didn't always was the way or the level that we have it right now. But historically, infrastructure has directly impacted revenue in the past. Downtime all the time, slowness that we didn't even were aware of, penalties that we got from Google, down in the rankings, that just hurts our business. It's still an e-commerce environment and an e-commerce company, so that needs to be perfect. That's why we just invested in dedicated hosting, in security, optimization. From my perspective, in e-commerce, uptime is not an ICT question, it's strategy.
Joost, now we're moving towards the end of the episode. So I'm going to ask you some small introspective questions that you can answer in a few sentences. Okay. First is, what do you think the future of e-commerce is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of evolving customer behavior?
All right. Well, it's a bit. It's obviously a scary period for business owners with AI coming to town, so to say, and it's always a bit scary to make any predictions there because we don't know what's coming. Maybe a little bit. So I'm really trying to dive into it, and I think that, from my perspective, artificial intelligence will improve. Personalization, efficiency, but trust and reliability in our company, I think those will stay and will remain key factors in our business. That's what I truly believe in. I think that customer behavior will change because of AI, like the instant availability, the personal relevance will improve. Frictionless purchasing will occur, what I expect, and we already see this happening in America. But I think we will stay on focusing in building our brand and the loyalty with our customers, and maybe just improve it with all the new AI innovations that happen every day at the moment, which is also an exciting time, obviously.
If you were to start a brand new e-commerce business in 2026, what product category would you choose to build in?
Well, tough question. I think what we do now matters, and I would do it again.
Wonderful. Would you like to give a final word of advice to e-commerce business owners who are probably starting their first business in 2026 or are early on in their journey?
Okay, well, we get a lot of students and new business owners that ask me for advice in that direction, and people are always a bit hesitant when you start building your brand, and I think I would still stand behind that. But once you start a business, I think it's okay to chase a hype, or start with drop shipment, or start learning on marketplaces and so on. So that would be the first step to start as an entrepreneur in this business. If you start small, obviously. If you want to start big, then it's definitely building categories where you can really create value. I think that's important, the value for the customer. Focus on your fundamentals like service, reliability, margins, customer trust, and then build your brand.
Well, thank you so much for answering that, Joost. Those were all my questions. I had a wonderful time talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me. And there were a bunch of insights, and I've enjoyed learning about CoolSafety before we recorded this, and also now after talking to you. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome, and thanks for inviting. Thanks for your kind words, and I was really happy to join this interview. So thanks for that.
The pleasure is all mine.